Good afternoon. The following presentation is a controversial analysis of the research question, is the use of personal data in targeted marketing an ethical practice? The information presented here was gathered and will be presented by myself, Ashley Jones, and my partner, Lewis Howarth, for the Pennsylvania State University Marketing Course 330. The movement from concept to consumer is an intricate, precise, deliberate, and planned-out symphony of processes we call the business of marketing. Products and services require specific promotions created through the extensive market research and advertising to get to their target market consumers. The process brings the product or service to the attention of the public with the hope of creating a demand from the desired consumer. This form of marketing is quickly becoming a thing of the past, as marketers are now able to narrow the field by obtaining personal information through the use of evolving technology. Personal information is then used to cut the fat by reducing the size of the consumer pool to pinpoint exactly who will want or need their product or service. The problem therein lies with the ethics and where the line should be drawn in the use of personal information and data without permission. The purpose of this paper is to create an analysis of whether or not the use of personal data gathering in targeted marketing is an ethical practice. This question will be further discussed by my partner, Lewis.
Thanks, Ashley. So what we are going to do now is review the research question itself. So let's state the research question that we are going to focus on during this presentation. It is the use of personal data in targeted marketing an ethical practice? Now, in order to really understand this question and come to a firm resolution on this, we're going to look at two sides of the fence. We're going to look at the companies themselves who are conducting this type of targeted marketing. We're going to look at the consumers, those who are engaged in this. In each of these two areas, we've actually seen two different schools of thought. From the consumer side, there are those who are more than happy to share their personal information in order to receive the benefits from targeted marketing. The other school of thought for them is slightly more conservative, where they feel that it's an invasion of their privacy. So, although there are different consumers who fall in between in various degrees of these two mentalities, for the sake of this presentation and focusing on this research question, we're going to only focus on these two mindsets. From the company perspective, the research that we will conduct will focus on two differing approaches into how they treat personal data. There are those companies who mislead consumers into taking their data without being very open about it. And then on the other side, there are companies who are very respectful and explicitly tell their customers up front what is exactly going on. So this is going to be the focus of this presentation in regards to this research question. Ultimately, understanding what is going on, what the different approaches are, and then come into some type of recommendation and conclusion towards the end of the presentation. So let's now go into some of the research that we've been able to conduct and to start seeing some of the different use cases and situations that companies and consumers find themselves in. The first group that we're going to focus on are consumers who give their personal data to companies on more of a selective basis, but are still relatively open about them. As we know, in today's world, there are many different technologies controlling the ways that we watch TV, our purchasing habits, and even the way we listen to music. All of these technologies enable us to make better and quicker decisions, and actually bring a great deal of happiness and benefit to our daily lives. Two of the companies that I want to talk about in this regard are Netflix and Amazon. So Netflix have actually been doing this for a while. They use a decision-based analysis tool to take all of the different views from their 44 million subscribers and then to offer suggestions to us back as we're looking through the different movie choices. Now, if we didn't have this, we would spend hours and hours and hours going through their millions of films trying to find something that is acceptable for us. So clearly, although it is personal data and private data being passed through to Netflix to change their approach and to change the way they market to us, this is an acceptable swap. The benefits are high and the risk seems to be low. From the Amazon perspective, we all know them from our Christmas shopping and shopping throughout the year. But what you might notice if you go to their site is at the bottom of each product page, they have suggestions for you to look through. These suggestions are based on your previous purchasing habits and those purchasing habits of all of the other consumers from the Amazon world as well. And from one source, they talked about Amazon, how they have built their success specifically based on data mining. How they mine through this data and indicate what you should want based on your history and their history as well. So again, taking their perspective here, it seems logical that as consumers we would want to have this help and want to save time and get the gifts that we want to give at the end. So from these specific situations, we have consumers who are happy to give their personal data away, who feel that it is an acceptable change and an acceptable swap for them in their lives and the way that they're living, and it's acknowledged and accepted all around. And this is a big part of why these consumers are so important as we address this question. As we continued our research, we found also more and more companies who are very upfront and very candid in the way that they worked. Amazon Web Services is the largest cloud computer provider in the world. Cloud computing is obviously changing the way that companies are working and people are working, whereas instead of having to purchase a lot of the servers and databases and storage upfront and paying a lot of money, you can rent a lot of this infrastructure through a company like Amazon Web Services via their cloud, and just pay by the hour for what you use. So a lot of companies are coming to AWS and are using their services, and a lot of people have a fear around cloud computing because all of a sudden they're not in control of their data and their processes. It's somebody else who has this and potentially has access to it. So Amazon Web Services has created a very trustworthy reputation of a company who don't go through their data and don't do any type of mining on these companies' data. On top of this, they set out a series of best practices in order to teach their companies who are using their services how to be upfront and how to be honest with their customers as well. And AWS maintains certification with robust security standards. So a lot of the security that goes into their infrastructure they try and pass on to their customers as well. The lessons that we learned from Amazon Web Services is as you are upfront with your customers, you will be a market leader and you will be trusted by them. To understand that AWS doesn't go through your data or doesn't lose anything is key, while Amazon also go out of their way to educate their customers. So we can really see that being honest and trustworthy with personal data is something that does build customer loyalty and doesn't really even give a need for targeted marketing because you have that approach with your consumers and will listen to them in other mechanisms. Unfortunately, not all companies take this approach with being upfront and transparent. One company who has come under quite a lot of criticism historically has been Google. One recent report indicated that Google is now in hot water after the company was denied an attempt to dismiss privacy that surrounds the act of offering user data to advertisers for a fee and without user permission. This has opened Google to a class action lawsuit that could see the company lose millions if found guilty. We see that there's a couple issues here with companies like Google who first of all take data without telling their customers that they're doing this, and then go ahead and sell it to third-party consumers. So not only are Google looking through your data without your knowledge, but then other companies are doing this as well. It's a typical problem, but it's something which truly does need to be changed. The EU are acting very strongly against this as well, changing a lot of their regulation. For them, there is a great question over digital data, pictures maybe that you're stored on Facebook, or searching habits that you have with Google. EU wants to allow individuals the power to delete their data, which internet companies would otherwise store and monetize through targeted ads. They want to change this. In addition to this, the EU has also recently ruled against Google in something which is called the right to be forgotten. This is something that allows ordinary people like you and me to request to Google that their data be deleted. So maybe, there's an embarrassing story about you doing something many, many years ago that if you search your name in Google, it will always come up. The EU is trying to change the way that Google can control this data by allowing this information to be deleted. So we can see that if Google and companies like Google act in this way, in a dishonest way, and try and make a profit off of our personal data, it destroys trust. and it destroys any chance of a long-term relationship. Ultimately, in the end, it is detrimental towards your business. And coming back to the question, is this an ethical practice? I think all of these examples from the consumers point to no, this is not something that is ethical and that we can appreciate.
Third-party targeting is the giving of personal data from one company to another with or without consumer consent. As an example, Verizon has recently developed and launched a rewards point system designed to reward all of their subscribers for their loyalty. To register, you must agree with what they call Verizon Selects. Registration states that Verizon Selects aims to enhance your experience by personalizing marketing you may receive from Verizon and other selected companies. To do this, we ask permission to use information about your use of Verizon products and services, the websites you visit, the apps you use, as well as your device and its location. We may also use other information like age range, shopping preferences, and information about the quantity, type, destination, location, and amount of use of your Verizon voice services. The key focus here is other selected companies, indicating that they will be sharing your information where they see fit to third parties. The pros of this are that all marketing that comes across your screen will be specifically tailored to you and all the things that you like, want, or need. As a bonus for being a loyal customer to Verizon Wireless, you can earn and redeem all of those points they give you for simply doing what you already did. The cons of this agreement are that everything you do on your Verizon devices will be tracked and handed over to companies you're not affiliated with. Your GPS and search engines will be constantly monitored, allowing strangers to know where you are and where you frequent any time of day because let's face it, no one goes anywhere without their phone anymore. When focusing on the ethical practice of using personal data and information for targeted marketing, most think of the average adult. However, in a recent survey, 92% of teens aged 13 to 17 are reported to go online daily. It is reported that 71% of teens aged 13 to 17 use more than one form of social media, with Facebook being the leader. The question to be asked here is at what age are teens socially mature and legally responsible enough to either A, be targeted, or B, be allowed to give consent of their personal information being gathered? Not all teens are raised with the guidance and or support of a parental figure. In some cases, positive information can be brought to the attention of the teen that otherwise would not have been. On the flip side, teens are taking on a lot these days with school, sports, extracurricular activities, and part-time jobs. Our marketers flash a quick fix with a 24-ounce energy drink, and teens consider it without taking a look at the health risks associated with the drinks. Currently, the only legal act in place is the Children's Online Privacy Protection Act of 1998, or COPA. It states that it is unlawful for an operator of a website or online service directed to children, or any operator that has actual knowledge that it is collecting personal information from a child, to collect personal information from a child. Currently, there is no other age limiting or personal information regarding teens or youth. For all of those out there who feel they're being safe and smart by providing as little personal information as possible to online profiles, the truth is that there's always a way around it. Even using the barest of information combined with the information your friends provide create a reasonable demographic that advertisers can still reach you at. To the marketer, this is a win-win situation. They get a percentage of the markets that they wanted from the sources they were previously unable to tap into before they were missing out from limited information profiles. To the consumer, this is indeed a negative. They are now still being targeted using what little they gave and still receiving moderately close advertising to the demographic they fit into. They are also now putting their friends and family personal information out to be targeted because they themselves did not want to be. Consumers are now becoming more aware that their every movement, input, like, share, comment, and click are not only traceable but usable, not only for them, but for their relationships online as well. It is understood at this point that there are two sides of the fence on this particular subject. There are those who are okay with it and those who are not. Either side, it is completely dependent on the risk versus the reward. The implications for the targeted marketing practice is that unless organizations explicitly inform the public and request permission from their customers, it is deemed unethical to use personal information for monetary gain. There are those who are comfortable with the level of information they knowingly give and information taken. However, evidence shows that organizations that make changes without consent or in any way make a customer to feel a sense of violation or invasion of privacy tend to turn their customers away. For those who feel any personal data taken with or without consent is illegal, it is a fine line. Growing concern for the subject is forcing many organizations to make their intentions known, create legal protection documents requiring permission, and being honest and upfront with their customers. Though laws and regulations are still in the works and being updated and created, organizations are now weighing the risk versus the reward and coming up with erring on the side of caution.
So through our research and the different case studies and opinions that we have been able to evaluate, we can conclude that companies can use personal data, but there has to be two different elements to consider here. First, there needs to be clear communication and permission given from the consumer to the companies in question. And second of all, there has to be some type of benefit in it for the consumer. So, with these two elements, we can comfortably say that most consumers, would be in favor of companies using their personal data for targeted marketing. But companies have to focus on trust. They have to be transparent and open, and they have to be willing to let the companies, or the consumers rather, be part of this process. They need to work with their consumers. We recommend that companies work with consumers and tell them why their viewing habits or purchases are so important, and why it would help everyone become more successful if these data sets were shared. Through doing this, companies will understand what products the consumer is more likely to buy, and the consumers don't have to waste time looking through multiple pages to buy a certain gift. It's a win-win, but only if it is done right. So, the whole idea of ethics being in question here with our initial research question, ethics is truly down to the companies. They can do this in an ethical way that really does create this win-win that we talked about, or they can choose to go against this, so either not use personal data at all, or do it in a very unethical way, which creates distrust and destroys long-term relationships. So with this, we'd like to thank everybody for listening to this presentation, and we appreciate any thoughts or feedback that you can leave in our discussion forum as well. Thank you, everybody, and best of luck.